Hello, classmates. This video is about understanding statistics using SPSS for Windows. This window is created for the subject statistics with computer applications and also as a video for financial analytics as part of the bridging program, especially for those students who are now enrolled in financial analytics but were not yet finished or haven't completed the course in statistics with computer application. Anyway, let's proceed. Okay, this is understanding statistics using SPSS. Now, this course, will be divided into different sessions. Okay, um, it's supposed to be 10 sessions, pero let's see if we can divide this into 6 sessions. And these are our objectives. No, after watching the entire set of videos, this is just the first set, you should be able to understand, apply, and interpret the results of basic statistical methods. Okay, and aside from that, participants should have the skill, in the use of statistical package for obtaining statistical analysis. Now, by the way, SPSS is also known as the statistical package for social sciences. So this is our target coverage. No, first, this video, which is your first session, it will discuss the preliminaries or the need for and use of statistics. And then we have another session for descriptive statistics. Okay, at the end of session 1 and session 2, SPSS features will now be introduced. Okay, for session 3, we're going to discuss inferential statistics, okay, which includes correlational analysis, measures of association, and regression analysis. So those are the first 3 sessions. And sessions 4, 5, and 6, it's not here, but it will be composed of actual use of SPSS for decision making. Okay. There are a lot of references available for this topic. Most of them will be available in our download sections as provided in the first meeting, no, in your groups. And for those who do not have the materials, please visit our site or the blog site for our downloadables. Also, for this material, I used Statistics for Managers by Levine, Berenson, and Stefan. Or you can also visit spss.com. Now, let's start on your preliminaries. When we say the need for and the use of statistics, yan. Here we are going to discuss, why you are enrolled in this subject actually. Ayan, so why do you need to know statistics, di ba? In the book of Levine, ang dami niyan. Okay, but I just want to emphasize on these needs, no. First, to know how to properly present information. Sometimes you will be given information. Do you know the difference of information and data? We already discussed this. When we say information, this is processed data, no? Data is in its raw form. Once it's processed, it will become information. Now, an information is considered as information if it will make a significant difference in our decision or in our decision-making process. So, a data, even if it's already processed, but it cannot be used for decision-making because it's not relevant, it will still be considered as data. Okay po? Information is only when it's relevant. Also, we need statistics to know how to draw conclusions about populations based on sample information. Ayan, so parang inferential statistics na, no? You want to draw a conclusion about a population based on sample information. We'll talk about more about that later. And to know how to improve processes, to know how to obtain reliable forecasts. Okay, so it's not just about gathering historical or present data, but it's also about coming up with a forecast. Okay, what might happen in the future, and of course to have a sense of scientific management. Ayan, so because this is methodical, okay, aside from that, it includes a lot of concepts, no, or bodies of knowledge. So, tama ba yung sinasabi ko? And of course, papasok din po dito ang basic functions of planning, controlling, and directing this information that will be used for decision making. There is a separate chapter for this. Okay, our focus in this subject will be on the following: how to properly present information and how to draw conclusions, because these are the most important part in research. Okay, actually this subject is already a preparation for your research subjects in the future. When we say statistics, okay, what is the purpose of using statistics? Siyempre, for this subject, okay, our main purpose is to arrive at a decision. Diba? That's the ultimate purpose. So, you have the following cycle here. Basahin nyo na lang yan. Normally, it starts from data collection. Okay, from the data, you organize your data for preliminary analysis, and then you try to interpret, okay, and you now have the world after analysis, so you now draw a conclusion, and how will that relate to the world before analysis, so yung part right there. And then from that, you collect another set of data, so nag-improve. Okay, dito tayo. Okay, how do you use the data that you collect? Okay, first you use them to describe. Kaya meron po tayong descriptive statistics. Okay, so after describing, you can also use the data once it's processed. No, you can now use that data to explain. Okay, now you process it further, you can also use that data to predict. Okay, and then you interpret that, you can now make decisions. Yan, balikan natin yan soon. Growth and development of modern statistics. Eto, basahin lang po natin. Before, it started because there is a need of the government to collect data from its constituents or from its citizens. And then, because of that, there is now the development of mathematics, no, of probability theory. And ngayon, sa panahon natin, we now have our computers. O, yan. At ano pa, meron na tayong internet, di ba? Mas madali na pong collect ng data, okay, and to process data for decision making. Okay, kaya nauso na ngayon yung data analytics, okay, or the use of live data. In fact, we're not just using about information now, process data to arrive at an information. No, the trend now is how to come up with a dashboard. Okay, when you can see different information at a glance. Why? So that we can make better decisions. Now, some key definitions that we have to consider. Okay, we should know what is a population. Okay, a population or a universe is actually a collection, but nawala. A collection of things under consideration. A part of a population is known as a sample. And we expect that a sample is expected to represent, no, the characteristics of a population. Parang tikim yan. Parang slice ng isang cake. Okay? So, kung masarap yung isang cake, ay yung isang slice ng cake, dapat masarap din yung buong cake. That's the expectation from our sample. A parameter is a summary measure computed to describe a characteristic of a population. Sometimes we use the term parameter, sometimes we use the term variable, okay? Or in short, ano ba yung gusto mong sukatin or malaman sa population? Okay? Balikan natin yan soon. And a statistic is a summary measure computed to describe a characteristic of the sample. Sa ano po pinagkaiba? Aside from spelling ng parameter at statistic, a parameter is for the population. A statistic is for the sample. Okay, now if you want to look at the process, ganito yan. This is your population. A part of that is a sample. Okay, using the parameters, kunyari, ano yung parameter mo? Kunyari yung gender nila, yung height, yung weight, di ba? You use statistics to summarize the features of this sample. And then you infer on the population from the sample. So, for example, if the average weight of the sample, let's say, is 100 kilos, di ba? Now, we can infer that the average weight of the population is 100 kilos. So, ayun. Now, let's talk more about population and sample. Kunyari, ayan. This is a population of M&Ms. Okay, so from the population of M&Ms, you can get a sample from that part. You can also get another sample from this part or maybe from this part. Ayan, population, sample. It's just a part of the population. Why do you need to draw a sample? Ganito po kasi yan. Okay? It's less time consuming than a census. Ano po yung census? Census is when you measure or you get the data from all the members of the population. Okay? Sampling, okay? Well, under sampling, you don't have to do that. You just measure the data coming from the sample. Because of that, it's less costly. No? Sampling will be less costly than a census. So, syempre, less resources required. Less time required to get the data. And it's less cumbersome. Of course, and more practical to administer than a census of the targeted population. Now, what are the types of sampling method? Actually, there are different types, but you can actually categorize them into two. You have the non-probability samples, which is not so popular in the field of research. Most of the time, we use probability sampling because this is more methodical. Okay, under non-probability, okay, when you get your samples based on your judgment, okay, on based on your professional judgment, I think this will be a group that can be used as a sample. Parang ganon. Or you just meet your quota, or maybe you just, wala lang, get a chunk, no, of that population. Ayan, we don't normally use this. Instead, we use your probability sampling technique. You have your simple random, systematic, stratified, and cluster. Ayan, we'll talk about those. Okay? Ano po ba yung mga yan? Now, under probability samples, subjects of the sample are chosen based on known probabilities. Okay, ang daming kailangan i-consider na probabilities. Of course, the most important will be the probability, okay, that they will represent the population. Okay, so you have the simple random, systematic, stratified, and cluster. Ano po itong mga ito? Okay. Now, under simple random samples, every individual or item from the frame has an equal chance of being selected. Okay. Here, samples are obtained, let's say, from a table, kunyari, a table of random numbers or computer random number generators. Meron din ng random number generator sa calculator natin eh. O, diba? So, ayun. Everyone has the same probability to be chosen. Therefore, okay, the possibility that they will represent the population is high. O, ganun daw. Now, aside from simple random sampling, we also have your systematic sampling. Ito mas astig to, no? Most of the time we use this. Under systematic sampling technique, okay, or a systematic sample, this is when the entire population is divided into ano groups, okay. But before that, you have to establish first. You have to establish the sample size, okay. Now, once you have your sample size, you now divide the population into the number size so that you can arrive at the number of individuals for your sample. So, for example, dito, the population is 64 and you want to have a sample of 8. So, you divide 64 by 8, then you should choose 8 persons. How do you choose this? Okay, you will choose one from each group. Okay, so you choose the randomly, no, of course. Randomly, you select one individual from the first group. And then on the second group, on the third group, ganon. Now, if you chose, let's say, randomly the third individual from the first group, then you choose the third individual from the second group, third individual from the third group. Ganon. So that's your systematic sampling. Okay po? You also have your stratified sampling. Mas madalas gamitin ito, especially if there are different parameters, different variables involved, no? Or that you have to consider in coming up with an inference, kunyari, or in the summary. Well, actually, depende yan sa research design mo. So how do you do stratified sampling? Okay, first the population will be divided into groups, no, according to some common characteristics. For example, you have the group of males and the group of females. So, parang ganon. Okay, and then you use simple random sampling selected from each group. Okay, and then two or more samples are combined into one. Oh, ayan. So, for example, you have the males and females. So, yun po, meron na tayong dalawang group. And then, from that group, you're now going to choose, okay, randomly. Ayan, ilan sa lalaki, ilan sa babae. So that, okay, both groups will be properly represented. Ayan. Both groups from the population will be properly represented in your sample. And medyo mas madugo pa yan. A stratified sampling kasi is a simple random sample from different groups. So, you can also have a stratified sample within a stratified sample. Yun na yung cluster samples, okay? When you divide them into groups and then within the groups, you divide them into other groups na naman. Parang ganon. Your population will be divided into several clusters, okay? So, kunyari, you have a group for males, females, lesbians, and gays. Oh, ayan. So, apat na types. And then from there, hahatiin mo na naman. O, diba? So that everything will be, represented. O, ayan. Now, there are different ways on how you can conduct your cluster sampling. No? Most of the time, in practice, we stratify them first. Okay? We stratify them first. Balik tayo. We stratify them first and then within each group, parang another group na naman. So that's your cluster sampling. Now, what are the advantages and disadvantages? Okay, basahin lang natin, mabilis lang to. Under simple random sample and systematic sample, it's simple to use, may not be a good representation of the population's underlying characteristics. For stratified sample, this ensures representation of individuals across the entire population. For cluster sample, sabi niya, it's more cost-effective but less efficient. It needs larger sample to acquire the same level of precision. That's why most of the time, no, ang nakikita natin sa mga researches is stratified sampling or simple random sampling. Okay? Now, let's go to statistical methods. Ito dapat tatandaan nyo to because this is important to you. And first, you have your descriptive statistics. This is when you just collect and describe data. Now, from descriptive statistics, you can process that further. And you now have inferential statistics. No? This is when you draw conclusions or make decisions concerning a population based only on sample data. Okay po? So, under descriptive statistics, the first step is always to collect data. Like, for example, through a survey. And then you summarize your data. You present them into something that's more easier to comprehend. Maybe a visual presentation or it could be in tables. And pag tables kasi puro numbers lang, parang listahan yan. But using graphs and charts, it's more visual. Okay? And then you characterize the data by using statistical tools like what's the average, kaya, diba? Or what's the mode, or what's the median. Okay, so that's your descriptive statistics. Okay? Now, you also have inferential statistics. Under inferential statistics, okay, most of the time, yan, you estimate. You estimate the population mean weight using the sample mean weight. So, ayan, nag-sampling ka na. Okay, so kung ano yung characteristics ng sample mo, yun din yung characteristics ng population mo. Okay, so that's inferential statistics. We use them also for hypothesis testing. No? For example, we get the average or we get the grades na lang. Okay, we get the grades as a measure of academic performance of students. And we see if there is a significant difference of your grades from that of a test value of 75 or a test value of 85. Di ba? Kung hindi siya malayo sa 85, medyo magaling kayo. Pero kapag medyo malayo na siya sa 85, nako, okay, gaano siya kalayo? Is that favorable or unfavorable? Diba? Baka skewed towards 75 na siya. Ganun. Or above 85. Okay. Babalikan natin yan soon. Now, under inferential statistics, okay, we draw conclusions or we make decisions concerning the population based on sample results. Why do we need data? Number one, to provide input to survey. Also, okay, it provides input to study. And, okay, to measure performance of service or production process, guys sa TI, di ba? To evaluate conformance to standards, for example, academic performance versus yung cut-off na 85. Baka kailangan nating reviewin yun. Baka yung cut-off nyo pala dapat ay 95. O, ayan. O kaya dapat pala ang cut-off nyo ay 73 kasi ang bababa ng grades. Ganun. To assist in formulating alternative courses of action. Ayan. Especially in management na, in production management. Ayan. And of course, my favorite, to satisfy curiosity. Gusto lang kasi nating malaman. Wala lang, gusto mo lang malaman. Malay mo, magagamit mo sa future. No? For example, no, gusto mong malaman kung ano kaya yung lifestyle ng mga customers ko. Ikaw ay isang shoemaker. O, Diba, normally, gusto mong malaman kung ano yung size, ano yung type, ano yung design. Pero ikaw gusto mong malaman yung lifestyle. Siguro, gagamitan mo siya ng isang malupit na marketing strategy. O, ayan. Vegan shoes. Diba? Shoes para sa mga vegetarian. O, ayan. Mga hindi gumagamit ng leather shoes. O, diba? So, ayan. Data. Let's talk about data. There are different types of data and different sources. Okay, you have data coming from objects, okay, which can be observed through units or entities. Sometimes we call them variables naman, data from variables, no, the characteristics of these objects, like for example, shape, color, size, weight, sex, income, ayan, and so on and so forth. Ano po yung sources ng mga to? Normally, you can categorize them into two. You have your primary and secondary. When we say primary, the data will come first-hand, no, through data collection, through observation, survey, and experimentation. In short, you collect the data. Secondary sources naman, you don't have to collect because this data is already compiled. Like for example, no, financial performance for the past 5 years or for the past 10 years. Okay, those are example of secondary data sources. Okay, now still on data, you have the different levels of measurement. May iba yung levels of measurement sa levels of precision. Okay, under levels of measurement, you have 4. When you can measure the data at its nominal level. Pangalan lang, nominal. Diba? So, in short, into categories lang, like male, female, white, blue, red and yellow, yung mga ganon. Ano pa ba yung mga nominal level? For example, you have married, single, ray. It's complicated. Those are your nominal level. Ordinal level naman, it refers to scores which can be categorized and also be put into some meaningful order. So, it's better than nominal. This time, may score ka na. So, for example, okay, you're measuring color instead na color na red, yellow, and blue, you can now measure the level of their brightness. Very bright, bright, moderate, dark, very dark. Diba? So, that's now your ordinal level. May order na po siya. Interval naman, data can be put into some meaningful order and there is a fixed interval between adjacent scores. But there is no fixed or absolute zero. Like for example, the cost per unit or not the cost, the fixed cost per unit of production. Now, when we talk about the different behaviors of cost, no, from cost accounting, we all know that fixed cost is constant in total, but per unit, it is decreasing, no? It is decreasing at a decreasing rate, but it will never be zero. So, your fixed cost per unit is an example of an interval level. Okay po. Pag-ratio naman, similar to interval but has a fixed or absolute zero. So you can calculate ratio. So that's the only difference of interval level. Okay, for interval, there is no absolute, there's no fixed or absolute zero, but for a ratio, okay, we can have a fixed or absolute zero. Okay, now variables and research design. Here we'll talk about how they influence the use of statistics. Okay, variables can be categorized whether they are continuous, discrete, and categorical. Okay, so ayun po. They could be independent or dependent, and you can categorize them as to levels of measurement. Okay, wait lang. Let's go back to your previous slide. Okay, this one is also levels of measurement, no? This one is also has two levels of measurement, gaya kanina. Okay, pero mamaya pag-uusapan natin, okay, ano yung part na to? Because this is, in some books, also understood as variables as to levels of measurement. Okay, ano pinagkaibahan yan? You also have experimental, quasi-experimental, and correlational designs. Also, we'll talk about between participant and within participant designs. Oh, wait lang, uubo lang po ako saglit. Okay, let's talk about variables. Different characteristics of variables. Okay, these are continuous, tatlo yan, discrete, and categorical. Okay, when we say continuous, this is the most precise. Wait lang, I'll stop there. For discrete, can take only certain discrete values within the range. Categorical can take only values that are in categories. Now, eto, variables also as to level of measurement, but as to their precision. Okay? Not similar to the levels of measurement. Yung kanina, yung apat. Nominal, kasi level yun eh. As to name lang. Is it interval, ganon, or a ratio. Ito, as to precision. Continuous, this is the most precise. To understand this, let's start here. Under categorical, kunyari, you can categorize your income as to high, average, and low. Diba? Or you can have discrete, okay? Can take only certain discrete values within the range. For example, you can have 1 peso, 2 pesos, 3 pesos, 4 pesos, and so on and so forth. But then, pag continuous, it's more precise. Okay, you can have, let's say, 100,000 pesos and 20 centavos. Ayan, there are more, may decimal places na siya. Okay? You can also, let's say, there are limitations kasi for continuous. Like, for example, okay, value in terms of money is considered as continuous, okay, but only up to 2 decimal points. Okay, a true continuous variable is, for example, your present value factors. Diba? Your decimal values is infinite. Pag minsan hindi siya natatapos. Okay, so, ayun. Next, we'll go back to that soon. You also have your independent and dependent variables. Okay, so what are independent variables? These are the variable manipulated. Okay, take note, manipulated by experimenter under experimental design. Okay, or independent variable can also be understood as the variable that causes a change in the dependent variable. Okay, so yan, dependent upon the value of independent variable. So for example, we have established the relationship, no, of the number of hours to study of a certain student. A student's number of study hours and their academic performance. And we found out that what affects the other? Well, the number of hours affects the academic performance. Ganun. So the number of hours will be the independent variable and the academic performance is the dependent variable. O, diba? Although, you can look at a different angle kasi, kunyari may magsabi, yung malikot ang utak. So, I think it's the other way around. Okay, the academic performance will actually affect the number of hours that the student, okay, will use in its studying. So, while the academic performance is higher, they will study less kasi magagaling na sila. Okay, or yung mga medyo mas mababa ang grade, they will study more because they need to increase their grade. Okay, yung mga ganong pagrarason, you can test that. You can actually test that. Pero, okay, kapag established na kunyari yung relationship, yun, that's the time we identify dependent and independent variable. Okay po? And then, Examples lang. Kunyari, okay, the violence that we see on TV could be considered as your independent variable. And what's the dependent variable? The amount of violence displayed by children. Okay po? Now, dito, instead of whether or not there is violence on TV, I think it's more relevant if instead of whether or not there is violence, okay, we look into the degree of violence found on TV. So, ayun na lang, mas maganda. Diba? Next, you also have the lecturer's the lecturer's tone of voice in lectures as your independent variable. Okay, and that would significantly affect the amount learned in lecture. Paano naman kapag kaboses kunyari ni Aga Mulak? O, di ba? Matututo ka pa kaya? Okay, so, ayun po yung ating independent variable at dependent variable. Still on the design of survey research, yan, first you have to choose an appropriate mode of response. Siyempre, they have to be reliable. Okay. Like for example, personal interview, ayan, telephone interview or mail survey. Ayan. You also have the less reliable modes, no? Hindi na 'tong masyadong uso, no, yung television survey, okay? Noon, internet survey, okay, is less reliable, but now, okay, it's more reliable now. Why? Well, siguro it could be easily made available, but only to those who have internet connections kasi. Now, this reminds me of the sampling error, no, and the false attribution of to respondents. Ayan. Ewan ko, because there's this institution, hindi ko nasasabihin. Marami sila. Ganun na lang. Okay, nag-float sila. Nag-float sila ng survey through the internet about the online class. Okay, now one of the comments that I hear is that, well, I think it's unfair. No, it's a little imbalanced. Why? Because you're asking a question about online class and the questionnaire was made available mostly to students who are always connected to the internet. Diba? Which means there could be a possible sampling error. Okay? That your respondents may not reflect the characteristics of the entire population. That perhaps the clients, no, of these institutions, no, are, let's say, siguro majority of them are not always online. So only the minority, kunyari lang naman, only a few of them, okay, are always online, and these few members of the population, okay, became the respondents. Ayan. So yun yung problema. Okay, titingnan din natin yung coverage ng survey natin. Anyway, we'll discuss that further. You have printed survey on newspapers and magazines. Wala na yatang nagbabasa niyan ngayon. And then product or service questionnaire. Those questionnaires that are attached at the back of our products. Ganun. Okay. For services, sometimes they're considered as irrelevant kasi and reliable. Why? Because especially now, no, after the service provided, let's say in a car shop, no, after the service provided, okay, before you pay, you are going to answer a small survey, ganon. And then they're going to tally that, and then that will now be the basis for the performance evaluation of their manpower. And as a strategy, no, basis for their future strategies. Anyway, let's continue. Under the design of survey research pa rin, it's very important that you formulate accurate questions. Make questions clear and unambiguous. Use universally accepted definitions. No? Like for example, one of your variables is, let's say, income or family income. There's a difference between asking, let's say, how much is your monthly income versus how high is your income. Diba? How much is your monthly income could be, let's say, 20, 30, 40,000 a month, 60,000 a month. Okay? Versus how high is your income, they might answer very high, high, low, very low. And it becomes subjective. Because what may be high to me may be low for other respondents, no? My net income, kunyari, is only 30,000 a month. And for someone like me that is, let's say, matipid, kunyari, kuripot, o ayan, mataas na yung 30,000. But for someone, let's say na mataas yung demands ng lifestyle niya, 30,000 is a low net income. Okay po? So you have to formulate accurate questions in your survey. Aside from that, you also have to test the survey. Kaya meron tayong tinatawag na pre-test. I will teach you how to conduct a pre-test soon in SPSS before you conduct your questionnaire. So sabi, pilot test the questionnaire, mali yata, before you conduct the survey. Anyway, pilot test the survey on a small group of participants to assess clarity and length. Ayan. Don't forget to write a cover letter. Okay, we, the students of like this and like that, is conducting a research entitled Juvenes Jujuvels. Okay, the intention of the research is to know the etlaboo of etc. Okay, so yun na yung mga importance niya. We guarantee that the information, yada 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 yada, collected from you will be used for academic purposes only, okay, and will be held in, ang hirap mag-English, basta yon hindi natin ipagkakalat or ibebenta. Ayan. And you offer incentive gifts daw for responded participation. Yung mga iba, yung nagbibigay sila ng candy or ball pen na giveaway just to answer a survey. Okay, sa akin naman doon, when I conducted my paper, or hindi lang sa dissertation, even now, no, if I do my researches, I ask someone to float a questionnaire, yun na lang naka-field, yun na lang nag-float ng questionnaire, ang bibigyan ko ng incentive. Okay, tapos siya nang bahala na maghahanap ng mga respondents na sasagot doon for free. Di ba? Imagine kasi yung impact ng candy or ballpen na ibibigay mo sa maraming tao versus minsanan mo na lang siyang ibigay. Maraming ballpen or maraming candy. Hindi naman. Yung value nun, minsanan mo na lang ibigay sa isang tao. So, mas makakatulong pa. Diba? So, yun naman ang sa akin. Research designs. You have your experimental design. This is when you randomly allocate participants to the conditions of the independent variable. Okay, so ayun. And then you also have quasi-experimental. Involve investigating intact groups such as males and females, and therefore do not use a random allocation of participants into conditions. In short, okay, under experimental designs, okay, you have to divide them into groups, okay, for quasi-experimental kahit hindi na. Ayan. Most of the time, ginagamit natin itong correlational dito sa subject na to. Examine relationships between variables that do not have independent variables and dependent variables. Okay po? Babalikan natin yan soon. Okay. Now, overview of research designs. When we say experimental, okay, the independent variable is manipulated. Okay, so you change that. Titignan mo yung effect niya sa mga respondents mo. Okay, and then it's analyzed with different tests. No? For the manipulation and test, you have t-test and ANOVA most of the time. Let's say you want to see if there is a significant difference of the athletic performance, no? Athletic performance of those who use brand X versus those who are using brand Y o experimental, di ba? Dalawang groups. Okay? Isang groups for brand X, isang group for brand Y. Okay? So, ikakandak natin IT test. O let's say, brand X, brand Y, and brand Z. Aha, mag-a-ANOVA na tayo. Or quasi-experimental naman, pseudo manipulation of independent variable. There's no random allocation of participants kasi they are intact na you don't need to divide them into groups. For example, you want to measure the athletic performance of the male and female. O, di ba? Hindi mo naman pwedeng palitan ng gender yung isang tao, di ba? Male na yan eh. Yung isa female na yan eh. Okay? So, yun. Magtititest ka pag male or female. Or, let's say, in one group, you have male, female, gay, lesbians, trans, ano pa, may nakalimutan ba ako? Ayun, mag-a-ANOVA ka na. Ayun. And then correlational investigates the degree to which variables vary. Okay? It cannot infer causation from correlations. Na-discuss na natin to nun sa cost. No? When we say causation, there is cause and effect. No? Sa correlation, hindi ganun. You just want to see the movement of variables. Like, for example, you want to investigate the population in the past 20 years versus the number, no? The number of street lamps. Oh, di ba? In the past 20 years, dumami ang populasyon ng Pilipinas. Also, in the past 20 years, dumami rin ang number of street lamps. So, they are positively correlated. But is there causality? No, not necessarily. No? We're not going to say, but because there are more street lamps, that's why there are more people. And, or because there is an increase in population, that's why there are more street lamps. Okay, so, hindi po siya ganon. That's why, when it comes to, designing the question in your survey, or not just in your survey, no, but in your research, there's a difference between, let's say, analyzing the relationship of the number of hours used by a student in studying and their grades or their academic performance. Diba? Versus how does the number of hours used in studying affects the academic performance. Magkaiba yun. Yung first, correlation lang yun. Okay? Pero doon sa second, naku, may regression na siya. Okay? Yung degree ng kung paano maka-apekto yung number of hours. So, in that case, may naka-establish na independent variable and dependent variable. Okay po? So, ayun. Now, under correlation, you have Spearman's law, and Pearson's R. Okay, ito po yung mga common na ginagamit, especially Pearson's R. For example, academic performance and the number of hours in studying. Pearson's product moment. If your academic performance is measured in terms of grades, but let's say number of hours used in studying and academic performance, but this time, instead of using the grade, you're using the rank. Top 1, top 2, top 3, top 4. So, habang tumataas ba yung rank ng student sa isang classroom and dumadami rin yung number of hours to study niya. O, di ba? Or vice versa. Parang ganun, no? Now, we use Spearman's law. Take note, if one of your variables have to be ranked first before computing the correlation, you use Spearman's law. If not, you use Pearson's R. Okay? You also have between participants and within participant design. So, how do you allocate participants to the conditions in an experiment? Randomly allocate participants to the condition in an experiment and ask each participant to do all conditions in an experiment. Ganito yan. When we say between participants, you divide them into group. no? First, you divide them into group, and each group, no, will have a different variable. Tama ba? No. Same variable, pero nag-vary. For example, you have group A who's going to try brand X, and then you have group B who's going to try brand Y. And then you try to compare their, let's say, kunyari, vitamins yun, no? You're going to compare their athletic performance. That's between participants. But when we say within participants, okay, it's just one group, but all of them are going to try brand X and brand Y. So you have one group of individual. Let's try brand X and let's see our academic performance or athletic performance. After that, let's try to use another brand Y. And let's try to see our athletic performance. Nagets nyo yun? If there are different groups trying different products, kunyari, or exposed to different variables, tama ba? They are between participants. Pero if we have the same group, no, na-expose lang sa magkaibang variable, tapos tinignan namin difference, yun yung within participants. Okay po? So, ayun. And you have the following advantages and disadvantages. Basahin nyo na lang po yan. Evaluating survey worthiness is very important that, ayan, you should know the purpose of the survey. May patutunguhan ba yan? Kasi, kung survey-surveyan lang, wag na lang. Okay, is the survey based on probability sample? Okay, so that it will be more methodical. Okay, coverage error. Okay, you should use appropriate frame. It could be time frame, geographical frame. Ganito yan eh. Like for example, you conducted, let's say, a research about RTW dito sa Baguio, but then your target market are those who are residing in the Philippines, buong Pilipinas. Aba, magkakaiba ang klima, di ba? Siyempre, pag nandito ka sa Baguio, mas mataas siguro ang demand ng jacket as compared sa other geographical regions. Okay? So, mali yung geographical frame. Or for example, you conducted a research about, let's say, outdoor activities, okay? From 20, let's say, 2018 to 2019. And then the result of that research will be used now, 2020. Hala, di ba, bawal na nga mamasyal ngayon. Kaya bawal nang lumabas. It may not be relevant anymore. That's why when it comes to coverage error, it's very important, no? Number one, yung time frame na kinonduct yung research, and then also, okay, your respondents, because you might be asking the wrong respondents. Naalala ninyo yung online class na yan? Okay, which is for all the students sana, but then yung nakasagot lang ay yung mga syempre may internet. Ayun. So, that's part of your coverage error. Wala po akong pinapatamaan dito. Nag-e-example lang po ako ng kung saan makaka-relate po tayong lahat. You also have your non-response error. Hindi sinagot yung questionnaire mo, patay. O kaya, out of 10 questions, mayroon siyang isa na hindi sinagot. Sayang. So, instead na ma-spoil, tawag natin doon spoilage, tapon na siya, wala nang kwenta yan. Okay, pero instead na ma-spoil siya, mag-follow up ka na lang. Tawagan mo na lang or balikan mo siya. You also have the measurement error. Ayun na, na-discuss natin kanina. You should be able to come up with good questions so that you'll have good responses, no? Okay, you want to ask how much is their income so that you can correlate them. But you just ask how high is their income. Diba? So, their answer might be very high or very low. O mga ganun. Eh, nagiging subjective na po yun. Okay po? So, ayun. And take note, there will always be sampling error. Okay, what is sampling error? The error that the sample may not be a good representative of the population. Diba? Naalala nyo yung, diba? Continue na lang tayo. hayaan nyo na. Ayan. Types of survey errors, you have your coverage error. Ito, summary lang. Okay. Your sample does not represent the entire population. Non-response error, mag-follow up ko na lang. Sampling error, diba? Yung sample mo, mali. Hindi siya representative dito. Measurement error, most of the time it comes from bad question. Ayan, let's summarize, no? Ano may kailangan nating tandaan? Kasi antok na kayo. Ayan, variables vary in terms of precision. So, as to precision, na-discuss natin to, you have continuous, discrete, and categorical. When we say continuous, taking any value within a given range. Okay? Look at the example. Discrete, certain values lang. No? Like 84 or 85. Hindi pwede ang 84.99 or 74.99. Categorical, where the values diba? A variable can take are categories rather than purely numerical values. Okay, so that's your categorical. Ayan. Next, they can also be nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio. Nominal, pangalan lang. Ordinal, they could be categorized. Okay, interval, there is no absolute zero, may zero, ratio. Still, we're almost done. Independent variable, okay, kung saan dependent variable. Tapos, IV is what is manipulated by the experimenter under experimental. Siyempre, under experimental yun. DV, yun yung nagbabago dahil it was caused by the change of your independent variable. Types of research design, you have experimental and quasi-experimental. You also have your correlational designs. Ta-da! You also have between participant designs, when you divide them into groups and try different conditions. Within participant designs, you don't have to divide them into groups, but all of them will try all the possible conditions of the variable. A population, this is the universe, and a part of the universe is called a sample. May isang oras na po tayo. Okay? As of this point, you should be able to address the difference of descriptive and inferential statistics. You should be able to identify now the different types of data and sources, and kaya nyo bang i-identify or enumerate yung sampling methods. Also, as of this point, okay, we were able to describe, we have described the different types of survey errors. So that is now the end of session 1. Okay, for the boring part. Now let's try to discuss this next meeting as a continuation pa rin of the first session. No? I think I'm not allowed to post a video which is longer than 1 hour, but to give you an overview, spoiler, okay, this is what we will do next meeting. We're going to open SPSS for Windows and put some input. Open a file. Okay. I guess that's it. Sana nakatulong po ito kahit na kakaunti ang naitulong. Sana pag pinipikit nyo ang inyong mga mata ay naririnig nyo si Aga Mulak. Okay, and good luck on statistics and statistics with computer application. Please post your questions and your comments below. Okay. Thank you po.